This research we've been doing looks at the way that digitalization, access to mobile phones and social media affects the way that urban migrants in Bogota integrate into their new neighborhoods and integrate into the city, and what this means for development cooperation and how development agencies and humanitarian agencies can use new technology to help people settle in and to help meet people's needs when they migrate to a new city. And what we did was we did a survey in Bogota comparing the experiences of a cohort of Venezuelan migrants, a cohort of Colombians who had recently moved to Bogota, and a cohort of Colombians who had lived in Bogota for a long time, to learn how these three groups have different experiences of access to technology. And something we learned that was really interesting was that for people who had recently moved to Bogota, the Colombian cohort, and especially the Venezuelans, early on in the first year usually, their access to technology was much lower than their long-term resident neighbors. But what we found was very interesting was by the time you had gone through about 18 months of residency, a lot of people had access to these tools, and in many cases, the Venezuelans and the newly arrived Colombians had surpassed their neighbors. They had greater access to the internet and greater access to ICTs. And for us, what this means is if you're doing development cooperation work, if you're doing humanitarian work, early on making sure that people have access to face-to-face services. They may not have the technology necessary to meet their needs online. But it's worth keeping in mind as you're working with these communities that over time they have a high demand for these technologies and they will access them. So there's a great deal of opportunity for providing digital services once people have settled in more.